Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Jamaica records over 1,000 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in a single day, the highest since the start of the pandemic. Western Regional Health Authority optimistic that there will be fewer hospitalizations in the fourth wave of COVID-19. And later in sports, 4 Jamaicans drafted in Bangladesh Premier League. I'm Shane Masters, and here are the details. Jamaica has recorded the highest single-day rise in COVID-19 cases since the start of the pandemic. In its latest update, the Health Ministry said 1,128 people tested positive on Wednesday from 2,709 test samples. The overall case count is now 98,194. The positivity rate is 46.8%. 204 people have also been hospitalized in the last 24 hours, an increase from Tuesday's 189. 23 are severely ill, while 3 are critically ill. Active cases over the last 2 weeks have also increased to 4,863. 89 people have recovered from the virus. The total recoveries now stands at 66,236. Meanwhile, 3 other people have died from the respiratory illness, increasing the death toll to 2,486. In the meantime, Clinical Coordinator for the Western Regional Health Authority, Dr. Delroy Frey, says he's cautiously optimistic that there will be fewer hospitalizations in this fourth wave of COVID-19. Dr. Frey says he's hoping that the only cases that will be seen are only those who are immunocompromised.
What is happening worldwide, we should still be aggressive in how we conduct ourselves in terms of the crowd overcrowding, the wearing our masks, etc. We cannot afford at this stage to let our cards down. So what we'll see is within the next week or so, we will see what happens with hospital admission.
Dr. Frey also commented on the COVID variant that is causing the fourth wave.
Watch that. The question is are these cases due to the Delta strain, or is it from the Omicron? We are not so sure. But what is reassuring from what I learned about the clinical course of the Omicron strain is that it is very infectious, but the clinical course of the disease is very short, like you'll be settling down within 3 days.
And speaking of COVID, students locally returned to the physical classroom this week despite concerns about the spike in COVID-19 cases. But what have countries around the world been doing to keep students safe during face-to-face classes? Our reporter Sandy Williams has been doing some research and now joins us live. Sandy, what did you find out?
Thanks, O'Shane. Millions of children around the globe returned to school on Monday, despite a huge jump in COVID-19 cases. Now, while some schools are still teaching remotely, most schools in the United States and Europe are doing in-person classes, but under strict COVID-19 protocols. The U.S. Department of Education had urged school districts to take safety precautions and ensure classrooms are open for in-person learning for this semester. Therefore, some cities and school districts have taken aggressive new measures for the resumption of face-to-face classes. In New York City, where cases rose more than 500% in the last 14 days, students returned from winter break on Monday. Public school students who test positive will get a week's worth of at-home tests so they can know when it's safer to return to the physical classroom. In Washington, D.C., all public school students and staff must show proof of a negative COVID-19 test before returning to the institutions. In Los Angeles, all students and employees will also be subject to stricter COVID safety protocols, which were announced on New Year's Eve by the County Department of Public Health. The rules require all students and staff to wear masks outdoors where physical distancing is not feasible, and employees must wear upgraded surgical or higher-level masks instead of cloth ones. The requirement for upgraded masks, which must be provided to staff by districts, will take effect 2 weeks after school reopen. The district will continue to require baseline and weekly testing of all students and staff, regardless of vaccination status, through January. But beginning in February, only unvaccinated students will be required to undergo weekly testing. However, in Atlanta, several school districts are delaying in-person classes and starting 2022 with remote learning. Over in Europe, a new COVID-19 school protocol was released on Sunday in France. Children from an absent teacher's class can now no longer be relocated to another teacher's class as a stopgap. It is now strongly recommended that schools cut out field trips to indoor venues like museums. Maskless festivities with food and drink are now prohibited. Also, under the new school protocol, symptom-free vaccinated children under 12 are now free not to isolate as long as they get an antigen or PCR test immediately and then 4 days later present negative results. In Germany, children in every state except Thuringia are also back at their desks this week. Germany's new education minister Bettina Stark-Watzinger says mask wearing is a must. In Netherlands, schools remain closed until at least Sunday as part of a nationwide lockdown. Remote learning will remain in effect through Friday and may be extended, pending a decision from the Dutch government on whether to remain in lockdown. Sandy Williams, TVJ News.
And it's time for a break here on the Midday News. Stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. Health services were suspended in Belfast St. Mary yesterday after the staff stopped working because of a poor state of the facility. As Krista Campbell reports, pests have taken over the building and have already done some damage.
The Belfield Health Center in St. Mary Wednesday morning. Nurses and patients on the outside. Inside, others had their way with the facility.
So after we register in here, then we go across to doctor or nurse in here. So the doc it them right, bite them up. This you can see the condition, chicha eat on the whole place.
We have engaged a pest control company who has indicated they had all plans towards reaching there today. However, based on other plans, they will not be able to reach until tomorrow.
Parish Manager for St. Mary Health Services, Sherry Wallace, says the authorities were only made aware of the termite problem a few days ago. But others argue that the facility has been lacking maintenance for years.
The nurses keep saying that they complain. They have made several complaints and nobody coming to even spray the place until it reaches this stage. So there's not a need to close the place. It's just a need to really maintain the place and replace some of the things that the termites have destroyed.
Even the road for facilitate to come at the clinic, deplorable, and it is a main road.
Patients who turned up at the health center Wednesday morning left disappointed after hearing it was being closed for the day. Residents are worried it might have to be moved altogether until something is done to address the poor state of the facility.
They closed down the Clonmel clinic for some reason, I don't know. So I'm coming all the way from Clonmel, so I have to come all the way around here. Sometimes the fare is very difficult to find to come all the way around here, and it doesn't make any sense they move it and send us to Highgate because Highgate is overcrowded.
As we speak, there are plans towards the construction of a new health center for Belfield. The drawings have been done. They have been reviewed by all stakeholders, including our team members, up to very recent, to the latter of the year.
She says the Regional Health Authority is currently sourcing funds for the repairs. But even while that is being done, concerns about the old building which used to house the clinic.
The main building, based on the condition, it was slated to be demolished and a new structure put in place.
The building is not supposed to be used, but because of the space issue, they register on this side and so on, and they use the restrooms and then go over to that container.
Krista Campbell, TVJ News.
It's now time for the Business Minute. In the world of business, Express Fitness has invested $150 million into a new gym located at the Constant Spring Golf Club in St. Andrew. According to the executive chairman of Norbrook Equity Partners, the parent company of Express Fitness, Kari Robinson, the multi-level facility has been outfitted with a brand new high-end equipment, spacious gym floor, and a high-intensity interval training factory. The facility is the second of its kind in the country outside of its Ligani operation, which offers platinum class services to members with plans to install other amenities during the year. And in business internationally, China Mobile stock rose on its first day of trading in Shanghai, where it was forced to retreat after being booted off Wall Street a year ago. Shares of a Chinese telecom giant were up 1.8% on Wednesday after it pulled off mainland China's biggest listing in 10 years, according to D-Logic. The company had earlier raised about 48.7 billion won, a figure that could go even higher to 56 billion won if an over-allotment option is taken by early February. And that's it for your Business Minute. With the top regional and international stories, here's Sandra Williams.
In the region, the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association, CHDA, is asking regional governments to reduce the isolation periods for travelers to align with the United Kingdom and the United States so as to avoid reversing the progress made by the tourism sector since the COVID-19 pandemic. The revised US protocol allows for 5 days and the UK for 7 days confinement. Presently, some Caribbean jurisdictions require as many as 14 days in isolation. But the CHTA argues that the data no longer substantiates that length of time, which presents unnecessary financial and personal hardship to residents, visitors, destinations, and companies, and increasingly will deter travel. The CHTA is recommending a 7-day period.
We head to a quick break. When we come back, Simon Preston will have your Midday Sports report.
Welcome back. It's now time for Midday Sports. I'm Simon Preston. Both of West Indies under-19's warm-up games will be played in Guyana. The Caribbean side will face India on Sunday at the Providence Stadium before facing South Africa at the Everest Ground next week Tuesday. 3 days later, the West Indies will open the under-19 World Cup against Australia at the Providence Stadium. The Caribbean side will also face Scotland and Sri Lanka in Group D action. The West Indies will be searching for their first title since 2016. In 2020, they were eliminated at the quarter-final stage. Chris Gayle headlines the list of 4 Jamaicans who have been drafted to play in the 2022 season of the Bangladesh Premier League. The 42-year-old Gayle will be suiting up for the Fortune Bodyshell franchise this campaign. Kenara Lewis and Chadwick Walton will be teammates on the Chattogram Challengers team, while Shane Thomas will deck out for the Commonwealth Victorians. Sunil Narain, Rayad Emirates, Alzari Joseph, Obed McCoy and Kesrick Williams are the other West Indians slated to compete in the BPL. The BPL is set to run from January 21 to February 18. Down under we go now as England reached 13 without loss on stumps on day 2 of the 4th Ashes test against Australia in Sydney. England trails by 403 runs. Australia, who began the day on 126 for 3, declared at 416 for 8. Usman Khawaja top scored with 137. Stuart Broad took 5 for 101 for the visitors. James Anderson, Mark Wood and Joe Root took a wicket each. Australia leads the 5-match series 3-0. To football we go now as Reggae Boys midfielder Alex Marshall has signed a new 2-year extension with Canadian Premier League side Halifax Wanderers. The new deal keeps the former Cavalier player at the Nova Scotia-based club until the end of 2023. The 23-year-old earned this deal after tallying 8 assists for the Wanderers last season. The Wanderers ended 6th in the league in 2021. Marshall has been called up to the Reggae Boys squad for their upcoming friendly international against Peru on January 20 in Lima. Meanwhile, Jamaican footballer Nicholas Hamilton has been released from York United in the Canadian Premier League. The 25-year-old forward made 15 appearances for the club last season, but failed to register any goals during his time with the club. Hamilton joined York United from Cavalier in the Jamaica Premier League in 2020. With Hamilton being released from the CPL, it means Alex Marshall, Tevin Shaw and Sean-Claude Lawson are the only Jamaicans currently under contract for the 2022 season of the CPL. And that is the full-time whistle for your Midday Sports Report. I'm Simon Preston. Ashane, it is over to you.
Thanks, Simon. And just before we go, 2 quick questions. We have the Champions Cup on Saturday. How do you see that playing out?
You know, Dentil Technical have been impressive, only conceded 1 goal all season. The defensive solidity has been extremely impressive from their part, so I'll tip them towards going to the final and winning the title itself.
Now, we look at the ISA Boys and Girls Championships, which is also coming up later this year. The issue is that of having spectators. Do you think that they will get the go-ahead?
I think certainly spectators will go, especially those that are vaccinated. I think the question will be how much. Will it be 5,000 like we saw at the Reggae Boys game, or a little bit more, 10,000? With a 35,000 capacity stadium, I'm sure 1/3, 10,000, should be able to get into the stadium for sure.
All right, and thank you very much, Simon. And that's it for the Midday News. I'm Shane Masters. Join us at 7 for Prime Time News on behalf of the news, sports and production teams. Good afternoon.